And this is Indie Gospel Radio. I'm your host, Ken Rich, for In the Spotlight. We have Phil Marks Sr. on the line. He is a gospel recording artist, a songwriter, a singer, a lead singer. And welcome to the show, Phil.
Good to be here, Ken.
Now, tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I grew up in western Pennsylvania. I was adopted into a Roman Catholic family, and my adoptive parents were pretty much the best parents a child could have. I spent about my first 8 school years in a Roman Catholic grade school.
Okay, so is that where your interest in Christianity had its roots? Certainly
was. The first time a nun said someone had to make the world, I was hooked on God, and I've never really wavered in that. In grade school, we did a lot of studying about Jesus. The Catholic Catechism does a really convincing job of teaching that Jesus is the Son of God and of spreading the news of all the good which has come of his life and death and resurrection.
So I guess it would be fair to say that your early upbringing has a lot to do with your outlook today.
For sure. That combination of grade school and loving parents, I believe, was responsible for me growing up caring a lot about people and for trying to treat all others with respect that they deserve just because they're God's children. Although I have to say, as a child, there was probably a lot of believing what I was expected to believe without perhaps truly discerning and choosing for myself what to believe, as I believe an adult needs to do now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think we all need to examine ourselves in the faith and challenge ourselves and challenge our authority figures and test what they're saying against the Bible. I really do believe in that. So tell me about your early interests.
Well, my adoptive family wasn't in show business, so although I dabbled in songwriting as I was growing up, a career in music was never really a serious option for me. I took just enough piano lessons to learn how to read music pretty well, and I loved to sing in the choir and in high school, but mostly back then I played sports. After college I became an engineer, and currently I write software as my full-time day job.
Well, I could use a good software engineer at work, I can guarantee you that. There's a place in this world for software engineers. So when did you start to think in earnest about fully embracing your faith as an adult?
Well, when I met my wife, she was going through a process of coming back to the Catholic faith after many years when it was not a part of her life. And I think that inspired me greatly, and it's really wonderful that her faith and my faith is a big part of our lives right now.
And the songwriting followed after that.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed writing songs, but it wasn't until I met my arranger and instrumentalist, Manfred Drelich, that the arrangements started becoming good enough for people to listen to. I was extremely fortunate to meet Manfred when he became the choir director at our Catholic church that my wife and I still attend. And about that time, I was starting to realize through music I could share what I had been taught and what I had discerned about Christianity to help others out.
And so now it all comes together.
Yeah, I'm trying to use songwriting as a vehicle both to examine my faith and question each aspect of it, and to finally to truly choose as an adult just what to believe. And working with Manfred and with my family, my wife and my daughter help write some of the songs. Through music, I'm trying to put a voice to what God has put in my heart, and hopefully, this is something that I and others can benefit from.
Yeah, all of us songwriters are hoping to make an impact and reach people and win souls, and I think that musicians do have a big part to play in the body of Christ. So, what about your style of music?
Well, my songs are mostly ballads. The style is kind of diverse. The specific style really depends on what I think is best for the particular song. Mainly, I aim for lyrics as meaningful as I can make them.
Okay. So what was the main themes that you strive to present in your songwriting?
Well, obviously Jesus is one of them, but my music is not just about Christianity necessarily, but about certain policies that all religions in general should abide by so they can best coexist today in the world where everyone sees the other's religion out on the front pages. But as such, a lot of my lyrics are about Jesus, but in part my lyrics also represent how the religions interact.
So give me an example.
Okay, first, which religion to follow, and each aspect of that religion really needs to be completely voluntary and an individual choice for each person. So like for my Catholic religion, some of these choices are, is Jesus God? Do you believe in the miracles he performed? Is having an abortion a sin? Is getting a divorce a sin? Can priests forgive sins? But I think that more important than which particular religion we choose is really the good that we can do as we live our daily lives. Now, obviously, religions can be immensely helpful and inspiring in finding ways to help us do good.
Yeah, well, I'd have to agree with that. And we're going to put on a song of yours in a minute, a parable for life. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that one?
Well, a parable for life is about one thing to think about when making religious choices. And I can't really give it away before you hear the song, otherwise the surprise doesn't hit you. But
okay. Well, we'll just play the song and we'll have a little chat about it in a minute. Here is A Parable for Life by Phil Marks Sr.
I approached my mentor with this question on my mind: which is the true religion that should serve for all mankind? How will I choose? What must I do to honor God above? For there exists a great divide between the ways to love. My mentor sat me down and said, there is one thing to know, one thing you must consider well before you have to go. And so intently did I listen to this parable, so simple, yet it guides my life as traveling on I go. Three farmers each had grown some grapes, and come the harvest day, they picked their best and set out to the market across the way. And yet there was a mountain in between their vines and town, with three paths to the market they must climb or go around. One farmer chose the shortest route across that she could find. Up steep inclines, down icy slopes, the tricky path would wind. The second farmer, he went round the left side of the peak. O'er rough terrain with rattled brain, his ride was slow and bleak. The other farmer took the longest path off to the right. A smooth road gave the benefit of speed in day and night. Ah hey, 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 ah hey. They all arrived at market, having chosen their own way, and offered up their grapes for sale, each with their own display. Then did the people choose their grapes based on which path was taken? And did one sell more grapes because the others were mistaken? I tell you now, the people did not care which path it suit. The people merely asked themselves, how good is this fruit? Nigh for you to fly, my mentor said to me. You must now choose your own path, just as did these farmers three. Remember as you travel that regardless of the route, on Judgment Day your God will say, how good is your fruit.
That was A Parable for Life by Phil Marks Sr. You're listening to Indie Gospel Radio. I'm your host, Ken Rich, and this is In the Spotlight. We have Phil Marks Sr. on the show right now, and I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that song and how it relates to religion. How do you look at religions in general?
Well, in my mind, every religion's main tasks are to share and to grow. And first, I'll talk about the share part. Share beliefs in such a way that the people that are listening to this sharing are empowered as much as possible to make their own important life choices. Hopefully, the religion can help people make choices which benefit themselves and others the most. However, I have a caveat to that. A person sharing their religion should never assume that they know everything about God's plan for someone else. So, although a person shares what works for them, they must never assume that their choices are better or that they are better than someone else's choices. So, as such, I believe God could, if God so chose, an atheist could receive more heavenly rewards than a staunch believer.
Well, and that's quite a statement. Boy, I know some Calvinists that would jump all over that one. I'm not going to go there because we could use up the whole rest of the show just on that statement. An atheist could receive more heavenly rewards than a staunch believer if God so chooses. Yeah, Calvinists would.
I believe that's a paraphrase from something our latest Pope said lately too. Yeah.
And he has been making a lot of statements lately that are raising the ire of some of the fundamentalists and the right wing people and the Calvinists and so on. But let's just.
Well, it's a good discussion which could be made sometime.
Well, I agree with discussion. I really do, because I think that the truth has nothing to fear from discussion. It's only it's only falsities. It's only lies that fear discussion and debate. The truth has nothing to fear from discussion and debate. So I'm all for a dialogue and discussion among different groups. I really am. I believe in freedom of religion and freedom of expression, and I promote that on the network. And we have all different denominations on the network. I'm Protestant, you're Catholic. we can still come together and share a word about God and put aside our differences enough that we can still love each other. And I think that's really, really important. But let's go on. Explain the grow part.
Okay. When I say one of a religion's main tasks is to grow, I don't just mean in numbers, in attracting more people to the religion. I'm thinking someone sharing their religion needs to be open to learning and growing from those with whom they are sharing. So as well as individuals, even established religions should never assume that they know everything that God wants it to know. There's always room for improvement, and sometimes these improvements could be kind of dramatic changes to long-held traditions. But I think religions need to be examined fully for each generation that comes along. I don't think there is a church that has a complete monopoly on everything that's right, and I don't think there will ever be a church that has that monopoly. So as I grow older, I hope to learn a lot more about religion than I know now. And I guess along these lines is how we Catholics and in general Christianity kind of treats the concept of grace.
I'd like to talk about grace for a bit, but I'd like to make a comment here. Like you were saying that we can learn from each other in these discussions, and I really believe that's true. In the Bible, iron sharpens iron, and when people get together and discuss and debate and banty stuff back and forth, they tend to sharpen each other's views, and just in articulating your view to somebody else, it's helpful to yourself.
For sure, you get it out in front of you where you can see it and listen to it yourself.
Yeah. And defending a point of view against somebody who doesn't hold it really challenges you to examine yourself and what you believe, and hopefully your faith and your beliefs will become stronger from that. And we all grow. Even the best theologians tend to modify their theology over time. As they learn and develop and grow, they tend to shift positions, sometimes radically, on issues. And this is something that's seen in all different denominations and schools of thought in Christianity. But how do you see God's grace?
Okay, well, I think that's one thing that we Christians think about a lot, is how God bestows His grace, basically to help us out. I look at it like this. I choose to believe what God will do for believers such as me. So, if someone was another Catholic and we believed that something would give us grace, then, they have as good a chance to get it as me. However, I cannot say that God won't do the same for someone else who may even believe something different. So, it's kind of like, I know this works for me. This is great. Let me share it with you. However, you may believe something different right now, but I cannot say that God isn't going to give you the same grace when that He would give it to me.
So, do you have a specific example?
Sure. One way to ask for grace in the Catholic faith is by receiving communion. We ask Jesus to come into our lives, and we recognize Jesus in the presence of others. And the Catholic religion teaches that people who believe the things the Church believes and tries to live the way that Jesus wants them to live will definitely be blessed with God's grace when receiving communion at a Catholic Mass. But I think Jesus wants to take this even a step further than that. Even a person who knows little about Catholicism, but just enough about Jesus to hope that receiving communion may help them out. And who is the Church at that point to say that God won't bestow this grace on someone who, isn't Catholic but yet receives communion at Catholic Mass? See, I think that evangelization starts when the things that we value most, and the Eucharist is one of those things that Catholics value the most, these things should be shared the most. So making a non-Catholic feel welcome at Mass by inviting them to share in communion, I think would be a great first step towards evangelization. So basically, I'm in favor. No, the Catholic Church doesn't teach this right now. I'm in favor of open communion for that reason.
Yeah, well, I guess
I have a song called "Grace from Heaven" that's about God gives us all grace, and which helps us Christians to hopefully be rocks upon which Christ's church is built.
Well, I'm going to play that one for just a second, but when I think about communion in the Catholic Church, I think of the Council of Trent, being a Protestant, and I know that in the Council of Trent, anathemas were pronounced against Protestant beliefs, and Catholic beliefs were very well defined at the Council of Trent, and anyone who did not agree, even Catholics who weren't Catholic enough and didn't agree with those definitions, anathemas were pronounced against them and basically condemning them to hell. Now, one of those related to the Eucharist, and I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. You can help me out being a Catholic, but transubstantiation, I believe is the word, pronounced something like that, and it basically means that the priest has the power to change that little wafer into literally the body and blood of Christ, rather than it being a symbol or a metaphor for the body of Christ. And over the centuries, people who would not believe that it was literally the flesh of Jesus were burned at the stake. So when you talk about open communion, we're talking about, most Protestants would not agree with the literal flesh in the cookie thing. So there's a bit of a problem there that I see coming from a Protestant perspective to come to a Catholic communion. You should never count out something, a good thing, and communion to a Catholic is a good thing, and a good thing. It's when you share a good thing like that, it can't be more less than beneficial, in my mind. Yeah, well, we're going to put on this song, "Grace from Heaven," Phil Mark Sr., and we'll come back and talk a little more about grace.
Upon this rock I will build my church. Our love will bear the heavy burdens of a weary world. You are rock, upon this rock I will build my church. Our love will bear the heavy burdens of a weary world. Paths you mark for us to travel at each crossroad of our lives. Grace from heaven, light from shadow, offered through your sacrifice. Be with us in times of trouble. We can only serve and share in communion with each other, looking for you everywhere. Rock, upon this rock I will build my church. Our love will bear the heavy burdens of a weary world. Faith restores us with your grace, a gift to us from you. Hope sustains us through our grief. Your grace is ever new. Love fulfills us as we seek. Your grace will bring us there. A way to help us serve our God. A way to help us share. Believe in me. Search upon this rock I will build my church. Our love will bear the heavy burdens of a weary world. It may not be for us to know God's plan for other souls, as God has called for us to serve, not judge another's role. But God has shown us steps to heaven, bestowing grace to help us climb. Together we'll find grace from God, which helps us learn to love in our time. You are rock, upon this rock I will build my church. Our love will bear the heavy burdens of a weary world. And God says, you are rock, you are the rock, I've chosen you to go. So spread the news to all the world that I do love them so.
And that was Grace from Heaven by Phil Marks Sr. And you're listening to In the Spotlight on Indie Gospel Radio. I'm your host, Ken Rich. And we have Phil Marks on the line. And as the song was playing, we were just discussing more about the Eucharist and grace and so on. And we've both agreed that no matter how you look at the ceremony of communion, whether you take the body and blood as literal or symbolic, it's still good to invite Christ into your life and realize that his body was broken and his blood was shed for your behalf. So how do your songs address religious issues relevant today?
Well, in today's world, all of us Christians are constantly being called on to interpret Jesus' message into new contexts so that we can figure out how to act in our own lives. And the more time goes on, there seem to be a lot of issues more and more issues that to contend with. I intend my songs to be a positive influence to help at least my church deal with these issues in the right way. And there's a number of issues which you can talk about.
Well, how about the role of women in the church? That's a big one.
Well, I think that a church should be sharing everything that it can to help people contribute as much as they can, but in the roles which they choose for themselves. So I believe all roles should be available for both sexes.
So you would be, I guess the word is egalitarian, and there are others in the body of Christ that I believe the word is complementarian. So one side sees the roles for both sexes exactly the same. The other side would say males and females were created for different purposes, different roles in society, in the family, and so on. And while they're equal before God in terms of being of having salvation open to them, and we're equal, but we're designed for different roles, and that would be the complementarian view that the female was made to complement the male. And for instance, males cannot have children. Males do not have the ability to multitask the same way women do, because women have more cross connections between the right and left hemispheres of their brain. They can flip back and forth to either side, and men are locked into one or the other, which is an advantage in some situations and a disadvantage in others. We're running on different hormones. There are differences. So,
well, the way I look at it, women and men can bring different perspectives to the same role. There isn't a role which specifically discludes one from the other. I think that the ideal role for a woman is the role which she chooses for herself, and she can bring different things from to that role than a man would bring to that role.
Well, I would agree that women see things quite differently sometimes. They have a unique perspective, and they're...
I mean, if you have more diversity in a role, I think that's a good thing. You tend to get better judgment when there's more diversity within a particular role.
Well, that could be true, but the people on the complementarian side would say, what about Paul's statement? Because they go by the Bible. And they say, Paul said that the reason why he did not allow women to teach or have authority over men in the church had nothing to do with what we would call roles in society or the cultural norms of the time or anything like that. He brought it right back to the Garden of Eden. And he said it was the woman who fell first. That she was the weaker, not just physically, but she was the weak. She was the one that Satan went for because she was the weaker, and she fell first. And that was the reason he gave for his decision. It had nothing to do with culture. It had nothing to do with, any of the things that people drag into the argument. Paul brought it back to the Garden of Eden and the fall. But we could use up the whole rest of our time. We're actually out of time already, and we haven't even got to the last song. So let's just quickly talk about divorce, another issue.
Okay. For the Catholic faith, this is a big issue because traditionally people that have divorced and remarried are not allowed to remarry in the Catholic Church because the reason is given that they have sinned, and if they're not actually going back with the person that they married in the first place, then they're still sinning. But I kind of look at that like, people who get divorced, it may or may not be a sin because someone may just, be being dropped by someone who, goes after someone younger for some, not a real great reason or something like that. Even the people that are, maybe committing a sin by wanting a divorce need all the grace they can get to kind of get their lives back on track in the first place. So I think, the church position is to offer divorcees and non-divorcees alike all the support they can get to try to save marriages and commit to marriages and things like that. But I don't think the church should be in judgment over people to say, any divorcee at any time you're sinning, and I see the church as a sharing role, more of a sharing thing. Give people information, help them figure out what's important, but not to be the judge of can this marriage be annulled or not.
Yeah, divorce is a really sticky wicket, and I'm all for some leeway and some grace there because, it's a hard thing no matter how you look at it. And in denominational churches, it doesn't matter which one you talk about. I mean, the divorce rate is pretty much the same as it is in secular society. It's high. It's like 50, 60%. It's a huge number. But like you say, sometimes divorces happen perhaps for the wrong reasons, but there are times when people get divorced. If it's only, like some people take this very right-wing fundamentalist view and very literal view that, you can only divorce if your partner has committed adultery. Well, what about your partner is beating you or beating your children, or...
Yeah, I understand. Well, I could just speak from a Catholic a little bit. I understand that there are some things like that which can allow them to annul the marriage and declare that it's not a valid marriage so that the people can get married again. But I don't think they shouldn't be making that, given power to make that decision in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, the divorce or not is something that's to the people. The church's job is to make them aware of what they're doing and try to help them reconcile, or at least to try to help them get back their lives after such a thing occurs.
Yeah, and I think the church has really hijacked marriage in a way to increase their own power. You know, there was a time when if someone got married over in this church, this other church would not recognize the marriage. They'd say, "Oh, you want us to recognize you as married? You better come here and get married in our church." Right? And you know, this sort of foolishness, you know, it was more about power than anything else. But let's leave this one alone and go on to, how do you feel about modern medicine?
Okay, well, I think that all churches should support, medicine to help people heal, sure. But not only that, I think churches should actually strongly promote the miracles of modern science, which help people to choose how many kids to have and when. Now, I disagree with most abortions and think that's something different, because you're actually talking about another life. But people making, to me, religion is about people making choices, choosing what to believe, and that's so ingrained in our family life that we should be able to choose how many kids to have and when, whether that involves using contraception or whether that involves fertility procedures and things like that. Again, the church should be sharing and promoting. The people should be deciding these things that are particular to them, and do they have enough money to send them all to college or whatever the reasons are. It's the people who should decide these things, and a church should be in full support of things like that.
Yeah, the more I talk to you, the less I think you're Catholic. I think you're a closet Protestant. But what about gay marriage? Where do you stand on that one?
Well, I'm basically with the 54% of the American Catholics that support it. Love and commitment between two people should be celebrated. I think that being gay is really a beautiful physical state of being. It naturally occurs in a significant and stable percentage of the population. All attempts that I've ever heard of it, trying to change a gay person to teach them to be straight, have failed miserably and made the person just go through personal hell. A gay person cannot taught to be straight. They are what they are. Gay couples have the God-given right to be happy, to have families, and to be fully accepted in our society while they display their love and commitment to each other. And I think the keys here are love and commitment and not the choice of lifestyle. Well,
you know that there's many people who would disagree with what you're saying there, and they would do it on two grounds. One ground would be biblically, and there's many verses that would say that, like Leviticus 18:22, you shall not lie with mankind as with womankind; it is an abomination. And then you say, okay, that's Old Testament, that's not New Testament. But then we can go to the New Testament and find several verses that likewise condemn homosexuality in no uncertain terms. And liberal theologians, played theological gymnastics with those texts to try to turn them into something that they're not. But a plain reading of them would well, let's take one. Romans 1:26. For this reason, God gave them over to degrading passions, for their women exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural, and in the same way also the men abandoned the natural function of the woman and burned in their desire toward one another, men with men, committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. Now, Romans 1:26 is New Testament. It's Paul, the Apostle Paul, talking. So it's strongly condemned in the Bible, but you are saying that homosexuals are born that way, they can't be cured.
Yes.
Have you heard of Michael L. Brown? Dr. Michael Brown. He's got a book out there, Can You Be Gay and Christian? Now, he would argue that you can be cured. As a matter of fact, he knows people who were cured. And there's also a Catholic PhD, Joseph Nicolosi. He has a book out, Reparative Therapy of Male Homosexuality, and his website is catholictherapist.com, and he is a Catholic and he cures homosexuals. But he says that's something.
I'd have to look into that some more. I can't speak from what from those what they've done because I haven't read it. But my response is I think we know a lot more about it now. This is one of the ways that that society has progressed, and that there may be certain things in the New Testament which try to say that it's not that way. But I just know. I mean, what got me over was just talking to some of my daughter's friends, and my daughter talking about her friends, and there are people that go through this and are this way, and they're beautiful people. So it's hard for me to believe that what they have is a disease, and that they cannot be Catholic, or that they cannot be Christian, or that they are actually doing something wrong. I just don't see it like that.
Okay. Fair enough. You don't see it that way. So we'll leave this one. I've made my point. I think catholictherapist.com. You can check that out later if you want some more information, or you can read some Bible verses. Romans 1:26, Jude 1:7, 1 Corinthians 6:9, 1 Timothy 1:9-10. These are hard to address if you're coming at it from that position, but you seem to have quite a number of issues with what is termed the Catholic faith, or conservative Catholic faith at any rate, which is where it has been for the quite some time now. It's right. Leaned to the conservative side. So have you ever considered leaving the Catholic faith?
Well, not really, because it's done so much good over the last thousands of years. It's done some horrific things. When you talk about the Spanish Inquisition, things like that. But it's also done a lot of great things. It helps a lot of charities around the world. And to a lot of people, it's been a beacon of hope for the last 1,000 years, because their lives were so improved when they started thinking about Christ and how the Catholics were approaching it. But still, I think the Catholic Church has to grow, and I would like to work within the faith to keep all those good things and help it to grow and into the future and do new great things which God wishes us to achieve.
Okay. You have another song here, Come Away With Me, and I'm going to play it, but I'm going to play it after we leave the conversation, because we're already way over time. So I just want to hit on a couple more topics that we had said we would hit on, and then I'll play your song after we leave the show.
Okay.
So what are some of your other songs about?
Okay, well, I have songs which celebrate the life and death and resurrection of Jesus. I have songs which honor those who risk loss of life and who have given their lives to protect us, along with honoring their families. I have songs indicating how faith can help us through tough times. I have a couple Christmas songs, and I have a song about how if we have done something wrong, we really need not despair, because when we truly are sorry, God will forgive us if we ask.
And do you have any new songs coming out soon?
Well, definitely. I've got in about a month. I've got 3 new songs coming out. Now is the time. Will be about being inclusive of everyone in every aspect of religion. Our God, which is an adaptation of Our Father, and Share, which is my latest one I'm working on now, which is about evangelization.
And why don't you tell the folks out there where they can find you and your music?
Sure. All my music is showcased on my website at www.philmarksr.com. And I spell that all one word, PhilMarksSR, for Phil Marks Sr. My website has full lyrics for all the songs, song clips. I've opened discussions about the songs, which you can comment on. I have, what they mean to me. Right now, there's some free song downloads I'm offering. And you can also find other ways to enjoy the music, such as on Spotify and stuff like that. They're outlined on one of my web pages. You can also purchase my songs right from the website, or you can go to iTunes and search for Phil Marks SR.
Cool. And I want to tell you, Phil, it's been a genuine pleasure to have you on the show, and I don't often have a chance to discuss things with somebody coming at it from the Catholic side, because I usually am surrounded by Protestants of one sort or another, and trust me, I'm just as hard on my fellow Protestants, especially the folks in the Calvinist camp. So I hope you don't take offense, when I don't always agree.
I wouldn't expect you to. That's the whole point of my music.
Yeah, and to raise a discussion and debate a few things and talk about the differences and see how far apart we are and what we can come together on and so on. I think it's a good thing. I think it's healthy.
Well, thank you, Ken. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, and come back anytime, and God bless you, and thanks for being on the show.
God bless you, too.
And we are going to hear another song by Phil Marks Sr. This is called Come Away With Me.
Come away with me where God's song means freedom, where we make the choice of how we serve the King. Come pray with me where faith is believing. We'll see God's graces for all who will sing. We'll search for understanding to uplift us all. When both sides are growing, then we're standing tall. Let's raise high the chorus for the good we have done, yet keep on improving, include everyone. Come away with me where God's song means freedom, where we make the choice of how we serve the King. Come and pray with me where faith is believing. We'll see God's graces for all who will sing. When sharing what matters, we need to understand. Love should enlighten, but must not demand. Stay in tune with God's love, defeat our own sin. It will be apparent to who listens in. Come away with me where God's song means freedom, where we make the choice of how we serve the King. Come today with me where faith is believing. We'll see God's graces for all who will sing. The crying God on for sighs. Those who have heard of how Jesus has bled will sing for God's grace as we all move ahead. We'll still share the same love that we've always known, but singing a new song to bring that love home. Write some new harmony for all the old ways, to nurture good judgment, avoid darker days. Come away with me where God's song means freedom, where we make the choice of how we serve the King. Come and stay with me where faith is believing. We'll see God's graces for all who will sing. There we'll see God's graces for